All right. So, welcome back to the Cognition School podcast. My name is Satoshi Takano. I'm currently here at the ReactForge facility. And today's guest really doesn't need an introduction, really. Not only does he have an extensive resume, but he's got an extensive legacy etched into the DNA of hockey. And he's won 3 Stanley Cups, 2 Norris trophies as NHL's best defenseman, Conn Smythe Trophy as the unanimous playoff MVP in 2015, 2 Olympic gold medals with Team Canada, and we'll dive a little bit into that as well, and named to the NHL's top 100 players of all time. And in 2025, one of the biggest achievement, which was the induction into the Hockey Hall of Fame. Over 1,256 regular season games, averaging 25 minutes of ice time a night. And that's absolutely crazy. So for 17 NHL seasons. And so it reflects the standard of preparation, recovery, mental clarity that most athletes need to work on. And the one thing that I'd love to really talk about is essentially the decision-making things that were happening in your game for those, over 1,200 games, dealing with playoff pressure year after year. And how do you win consecutive championships and multiple cups, and not only just getting drafted as a checkbox, but being able to dominate and do that multiple times over and over again. So this is kind of some of the things that we're going to talk about today. But I just wanted to welcome Hockey Hall of Famer Duncan Keith. So Duncan, thanks so much for coming on today.
Well, thanks for having me. Yeah, it's good to connect. I've been following you for a while, and nice to meet in person here and get a chance to chat and talk some hockey with you. I'm excited.
Yeah, and I'm super pumped that we even have this opportunity because I followed your career for a very, very long time, and my son's 21 now, and so we got to watch and enjoy your games over the years. So thanks so much for coming on today. So a couple of things I want to talk about. First things first, the Olympics. I know that Canada couldn't bring home the gold, but obviously it was probably one of the best games I've ever seen. Tell me kind of some of your thoughts around it, and any suggestions you can also make for the future kind of Olympians that are coming up, the younger guys. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, just like we were talking before we went on air here, I think that, Canada, they did everything they could, and there's so much to be proud about to be Canadian with the way they played, with the amount of shots, the scoring chances. I think it was their best game of the tournament from start to finish, and they did everything but put the puck in the net 1 or 2 more times. But, sometimes hockey's like that, and whether you don't get the bounces or you don't finish your chances, the end result on the scoreboard is what matters. And like I was saying too, I think you still have to give the U.S. credit. The U.S. are a great team with great players. I personally love watching Quinn Hughes. Maybe that's because I was a left shot defenseman, but I see a lot of things that he does that I wish I could have been a kid and watching him and then restart my career now and seeing what he was able to do. So, I'm happy for the Americans, but at the same time, down for the players in Canada, especially Connor, and having the chance to play with him and knowing how much he cares about winning. But at the same time, lots to be proud about, and they played a great game, and maybe 4 more years from now we get that rematch. So we'll see.
Yep. Did you get kind of jump off your seat when McKinnon had that open net, or the Taves, the puck
Yeah,
sliding in? Yeah.
even the Taves one, it's kind of like you just it's one of those games where you're not getting the bounces. The goaltender's playing really good. Our team, the team that I'm coaching right now, we were in a game very similar to that where I felt we were the better team, but it's just, you see how it's going to go. You're not capitalizing on your scoring chances. The goaltender's making some saves when he needs to make them. You're missing some open nets or missing the net, and the other team's hanging around, and then they find a way to get it done off of a quick play. And it's one of those things. That's hockey for you. You're not always going to get the bounces that go your way. And sometimes maybe the team that looks like they're deserving to win the game doesn't get the win. And but credit, like I said, to the US for finding a way to get it done in overtime and capitalizing on their chance. And now they're the winners.
Yeah, I know there's a book that I read by Daniel Pink who talked about they've done all sorts of research studies on this where you have a gold medal winner and the bronze medal winner. Those are the happiest people because in bronze, at least you got something. You got to be, a medal. Obviously, gold is gold. And there was a study that said that silver medalists are the hardest people on themselves because they basically got second, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, no, I think mentally it's a tough place to be in, but I think there's obviously lessons to be learned. And I honestly don't think there's anything better that the team could have done. Like you said, it's just the way that the puck bounced. So, but I think it's just a matter of time, and things will pass over time, and then you kind of have to reset and restart over, right? So I'm sure you've had those situations where like it was in your court, like everything was going well,
Yeah,
and but it didn't
absolutely.
work out.
Absolutely. I remember games in Chicago where, maybe we got outplayed and outchanced, but we found a way to keep the puck out of the net. And, Crawford made some big saves, and then we capitalized on our chance. And, we're walking away from that game thinking like, we won the game. We did our job. And then the other team, reading their news clippings were thinking that they deserve to win. But, it's the way it goes. You don't always come out on the right end. And yeah, I think you could see that with like you said there. Yeah, there's two teams that, at the end of the tournament that are happy. There's only two teams that, finish the tournament with a win, right? The gold medal winners and the bronze medal winners. But you could see it on the guys' face that they're pretty dejected and getting their silvers. I mean, they're professionals. They're going there to try to do the job, and just came up short. But I think, they'll look back on it and maybe when their careers are over, and be proud of being able to play in that game. And silver medals, nothing to be ashamed about. At the end of the day, it's a pretty incredible accomplishment. I don't think those guys want to hear that right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and switching gears a little bit, but still kind of in the Olympic realm. Like, I mean, you've won gold in Vancouver, gold in Sochi, 2014. What were some of those experiences for you? I mean, I was watching obviously the 2010 goal for sure with Crosby, and obviously you got to experience it. Like, what was that like for you?
Yeah, that was amazing, an amazing experience. For me, I was 26 at the time, so I was playing with guys that I looked up to and idolized, Chris Pronger and Scott Niedermayer, even Joe Thornton. And, for me, that was the first big tournament. I had been named an all-star for the All-Star game maybe 2 years prior, and that was hosted in Atlanta when I was 24. And then after that, I played on a world championship team and we won silver. But up until that point, I hadn't really won any major championship. We won a WHL championship when I was 19, and that was certainly special, and I'm still proud of that to this day. But it's different when you're a pro and you want to win the big one, whether it's a Stanley Cup or an Olympic gold medal. And for that one, I remember that was the most nervous I had been, walking to catch the bus, leaving the athlete village and going to the game. You're in Canada. I'm spending my off seasons in British Columbia. I'm 4 hours from my home. I know all of Canada is watching. There's that thought that if you make a mistake here that costs the team, you're going to be remembered forever. So you could think like that. But, I always felt like you can't control every thought that runs through your brain. I know there's that thought process where it's like control what you can control. Well, you have negative thoughts sometimes. I think that's just human nature. And you think, what if this happens? But for me, it was always catching myself in that moment and then relaying a positive thought. and visualizing, all the little details, the small details of how, the process in your game. And I think that was big for me. You're staying in the moment, you're focused on one little thing, going back for a puck on a breakout and shoulder checking and taking a good angle, and then just making a good pass and being happy with doing that, and it's those little wins there that kind of allow you to feel good about your game, and then you're in it with a group of guys too. It's everybody together, and so I think there's that feeling too. You're not on your own on an island. It's a team game, and mistakes are going to happen, but it's what happens after that. Can you recover and go out the next shift, or not compound a mistake in the same shift? And so that, I think, part is, maybe it's called mental toughness or whatnot, but I think it's mental strength, but also a little bit of practice too. That takes practice in understanding that, if there's a mistake or turnover, it's okay, let's recover, whether it's you or your teammate, and don't make two in a row. Or if there's a mistake made and it turns into a 2-on-1, don't let them score on the 2-on-1. And don't let them make that pass across if you're a defenseman. So it's a game of mistakes, and whoever makes the least amount usually wins, but not always. That's
Mhm.
hockey sometimes, and there's not always a rhyme or reason for everything.
Yeah. So back when you were playing, I mean, obviously now we have, sports psychologists and mental performance coaches. Did you have anything like that back then?
Yeah, we had a guy in our team, Jim Gary, and he worked with us in Norfolk. Trent Yanni would bring him down, and they called him a mental skills coach. And Jans would bring him into our room. And, at that point, I'm 20 years old, and I hadn't really done things where I'm actually taking time out of my day to close my eyes, take some deep breaths, and then go into, picturing how you want to play certain situations. And for me, that was huge at that point in my career. I'm 20 years old. I'm going to do anything I can to play in the NHL. And at that point, I wanted to do everything fast out on the ice. I wanted to be quick. One of my favorite players watching was Pavel Bure. So
Mm.
for me, it was a way that helped me doing those visualizations and going through certain scenarios in my game using breath work to slow the game down and have that balance between kind of going fast but being able to slow it down. And I think I got better at that as my career went along. And again, it's not something that not necessarily came naturally to me, but there was a drive to get better in my game. And I took that. It's like that old quote, I don't know whose quote it is, but the warrior's greatest weapon is his mind,
Mhm.
and it's there's a lot to be said about that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And at what age did you kind of have that actualization where you're thinking, okay, I gotta do a visualization, breathing techniques, those types of, I guess,
Yeah.
actions that you took?
Well, I think it was when I was 20 playing in Norfolk in the American League. It was kind of, I don't want to say pushed on us, but encouraged, and brought into our team. And then I just stuck with it at 20 because I realized how much it was helping me on the ice, making different plays under pressure. Um, and, it got to the point where I remember being in playoffs and just being able to take one deep breath. And then it was just kind of grounding, just practice before the game in terms of going over the mental rehearsal in my head. And so being able to go to the bench and take one deep breath, and it just centered me, grounded me, and back to exactly how I wanted to feel and what I wanted to be locked in on.
Yeah, no, I think that's interesting because obviously, uh, you're gonna have your ups and downs even in a game, right? Where you're gonna have some good shifts and not so good shifts. I think, I would say the one shift that was probably the most challenging for you was the 2010 Western Conference Finals, Game 4, you lose 17th.
Oh yeah.
Um, Tell us about that. Like what was that like? What, and I mean, you came right back, right? Like,
Yeah, that was a power play, and I don't know. At that time, my whole mindset was we're up 3-0 in the series, and I don't want to lose this game. I don't want to be going back to San Jose to play game 5, just based on the fact that I don't want to take a flight tomorrow for 4 hours and have to do this all over again. Let's get it done now so we can get some rest. By that time,
right.
so that was my thinking, and it was just kind of let's get this win today. And I feel like it's obviously been a lot said. You get lots of teeth knocked out, and but I also feel kind of lucky in a lot of ways too. I didn't have to get stitches in my face at that time. I don't know how. It just knocked out basically all my teeth, and they pulling bits and pieces out and numbed it up for the rest of the game, so I couldn't really feel my mouth, so it might not have looked very good, but I think it could have been a lot worse. And I just there wasn't really any way that I was going to be missing that. I think most players would have came back. You look at Jack Hughes, he got high sticked in his teeth, and and then ends up scoring the game winner. So it's I think part of just trying to get that job done, and you don't feel like you definitely not going to pull yourself out of the game or allow yourself to
Hmm.
be taken out when there's so much on the line.
Hmm. There's always this talk about whether players are outcome driven versus process driven, right? So outcome meaning I just want to win the game. I'm just gonna, like you said, you wanted to get the job done. You didn't want to go back to San Jose, right? So just
Mhm.
get the job done the first time, do it right, so we can avoid having to do that, which is in my opinion, that would be a lot more outcome driven. It's like, that's, I want to win it now. I don't want to go back. There's a lot of people that would kind of let that slide a little bit. Like they're not really thinking about that. They're more process driven. Okay, I want to do my shifts well and win one shift at a time, and that's okay too. But it sounds to me like you had that nice combination of, hey, I don't want to play in San Jose. I want to do one shift at a time, even if I got my teeth knocked out. I'm gonna keep playing. Like that to me, I think is a very rare type of a mental state, right? Because it's tough. It's tough to think of those types of things. Would you say that, for yourself, like, were you more like the outcome of, I want to, you know get or play 1,200 games, or were you just really focused on just, one shift, one game at a time when you're in your career?
Yeah, that's interesting. I feel like there was a combination of both. I mean, for me, there was always the end goal and the end vision, and there's a process to get there that you try to follow. I think that's yeah, that's probably the easiest, simplest way I could put it. I mean, for me, certainly though, there's always the end goal and the ultimate goal, and it's just how do you get there? Um, and I always had that in the back of my head, even just as a kid wanting to play in the NHL. Um, you have that vision in your head of what you want it to look like, and then what are you willing to do to get there? What steps do you need to take? And then you make that happen however you think. And so for me, it was both. But I think definitely the hunger to reach that vision and all the intangible things, I guess, the drive and the determination, because it's not always easy, that process. And it takes a lot of different things, discipline and commitment, and on top of technical things. So
Mhm.
that's a combination there in that within that process as well.
Yeah, and the fact that you did 17 seasons of that, averaging 25 minutes of ice time a night, like, I know you're not counting, obviously, right? When you're playing your game, you just play, and the stats obviously show up after the fact. Were you even aware of, like, those types of stats with 25 minutes a game? What you were producing, and secondly, how do you stay mentally connected for, each game at a time, then repeat that for 17 seasons? Obviously you're playing 80 plus games a season, right? Like, how do you
Yeah.
stay in that for so long?
Well, I think it just goes back to the passion for the game first and foremost. I love playing hockey and the game of hockey. Love being around my teammates. Played with so many great teammates. Getting to go to the rink and sit next to Siebes every day, and Sharpie and Kane and Taves and Hossa and Ladd. I mean, it was just the best time of your life. And so the playing lots of minutes, I didn't really think too much about it. Yeah, I would see the statistics, but I don't know. It seemed kind of normal. I mean, I was in Fort Francis growing up, and we've got 6 defensemen on our team here. They're 12 and a couple of 11-year-olds. But when I was a kid, was playing Pee Wee at 12 and 13, and we only had 4 defensemen. So it's like I'm playing half the game, and I didn't know any different. So I think that I certainly worked at my conditioning from a young age. I thought that that was normal as well. And so to be able to push yourself, I, I think looking back on my career, I'm proud of how hard I was able to push myself and my ability to do that consistently. But I think that came down to the drive and the desire to get to where I wanted to be. Watching Hockey Night in Canada in the basement in Fort Francis all those years, or I wanted to be a hockey player in the NHL. So, the minutes, I think lots of guys were playing lots of minutes too. So the conditioning plays a factor, but maybe I was taking some long shifts. I don't know. I mean, Siebes would say, Siebes would say I just take an extra rush up the ice, but it certainly takes some, at the NHL level, a lot of discipline to what you're in your preparation to be able to take that kind of workload. The regular season, it can be a grind with the travel, and when you're young, it doesn't seem like it affects you as much. Your recovery's quicker as you get older, and then even playing in Edmonton, the travel was worse. I remember going from Edmonton flying to Colorado, and then we played Colorado the next night, and then we flew to Dallas right after the game and played Dallas the very next night. And then after the game in Dallas, we flew all the way back to Edmonton. And, at that time I'm 38, and I get back into my bed at 2:30, 3:30. It must have been 3:30 or 4 in the morning in Edmonton, thinking like, wow, we didn't have those road trips in Chicago. But I'm also at a different point in my career there where I liked sleeping in my bed more than getting on the road and packing the bag again. And it's a grind, and I think you got to love it first and foremost. And for me, I always, it was a dream come true to be able to play in the National Hockey League and play with the great, so many great teammates that made it fun. And when you're having fun, and winning helps that, but just being good teammates and being around your teammates. And I think that goes a long way too, especially during a long season. And you're not really thinking as much about the wear and tear and the mental grind.
I know you and Brett Seabrook, like you guys were like two peas in a pod. Like, I mean, how important is having that right partner to work with in the NHL?
Well, I think it's huge. I think you look at so many players, and whether it's Wayne Gretzky playing with Yari Curry, or I just know how much Siebes helped my career, and being able to play with a big, strong, right shot defenseman that moved the puck well. We thought the game the same way. He made me a better hockey player, and on and off the ice, and then and playing with him, our reads in the game were very similar. So I think we had natural chemistry that way, which went a long way for our team success as well. And yeah, certainly, feel lucky and grateful to have been drafted with the Hawks, and then Seabrook's there too. And, I couldn't imagine what it would have been like anywhere else. And, certainly grateful for the fact that it all fell into place that way.
Yeah. And I know, like you mentioned it earlier too, like growing up in Fort Francis, small town, but obviously you said, you only had 4D, and that was almost like your norm. right? Like that's your normal. So then
Yeah.
you play to that level. And then once you realize, okay, going into different teams and so on, you have six defensemen, you have seven defensemen sometimes. So I agree with you that, to almost like have your own standard and set that standard as high as you possibly can, that becomes your norm. So then when you're going outside, you kind of go, okay, like, wait a minute, I got all these guys like around me now, right? So I really like that tip where, you have to raise your own standards. It's not about just keeping up with the next guy because his standards might only be just slightly above yours, but you want it to be as high as you possibly can.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was one of the things why we had success. It could have arguably been one of the biggest reasons why is the fact that you're playing with Kane, you're playing with Taves and Hossa and Seabrook and Sharp and Yelmerson and Oduya, and everybody had their own way of pushing themselves, but we certainly pushed one another to be better because I think it was that internal competition. And going back to Fort Francis, it's like when you're playing with 4D, you're getting a feel for the momentum shifts in the game within the game. So you're kind of learning the game, but you're also feeling the different, the ups and downs and the swings. You're out there every shift, so you're relied upon to be the guy and kind of feeling stayed with me, whether it was, you're sensing energy drops in the other team later in the game or later in a shift. And, when do you need a goal? So those kind of instincts get instilled in you early. And then you have, that sense of responsibility that, you know, I need to do something here, or I need to be really good for us to win. And I think that all those guys in Chicago and even in Edmonton, um, you know, f- feel that way, and you push one another. And when you have that kind of internal competition amongst one another, that's a good, healthy thing for a team to have success when everybody wants to be the best.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And now that you're a dad, and you've got your son that you're helping him with his career. I guess my first question is, I watched your induction speech, and I know I sent you a quick text about that, and when I was watching, and um, your son's in the audience over there. Has that changed anything with respect to how he sees you or how you even coach at this point? Obviously, it's not just the Hall of Fame thing, but overall, like knowing that his dad played for a very long time in the NHL
Well,
success.
I think that's how we connected. I started following you. I saw some of the stuff that you were doing, and when I retired, my focus shifted to my son Colton, and it's been an amazing last 3.5 years being able to spend that extra time with him now, not having to leave or go to a game, and I'm enjoying that time, and it's been fun coaching him and his teammates, and apart from hockey, but getting to spend other times and being there for him, just picking him up after school and doing things like that. Yeah, it's certainly reignited, I think, the love of the game in a lot of ways. You see that it's a game and it's meant to be fun. And, I think what I've tried to instill in these kids is that it's about the team too. And it's not just about one guy on the team. It's about team success. And when you have that team success, it's because the individuals are all working together as a group and you know, pulling on the rope together. And then individuals can get rewarded within that when the team has success. And so um, it's been fun. It's been interesting learning kind of how to, I guess, teach skill development things with the kids, because I think when I was playing, I'm just kind of out there moving around playing. I don't really necessarily know what I'm doing in terms of cutting to the left and then to the right. I might know it, but I don't really never took the time to break it down and explain it. So that for me has been a learning experience and a process here on how to relate it to the kids. And for me, I think that there's skill development, but then there's also, like you mentioned, understanding the game, the situations in the game. Because if you watch the game, it's a lot of different, it's a lot of the same patterns and same situations over and over again. Now, there's not really any one situation. Having said that, there's not one situation that is ever exactly the same. Everybody's a human out there. They're going to be different right now than I will be in 20 minutes. So your energy level could be different. You could be tired. Why did he do this? Well, he didn't take the shot because maybe he's tired and it's just easier to pass instead of put that effort to shoot. Something very minute like that. But, it's been fun trying to, I guess, I, you know, teach the kids and my son, the game of hockey at their level has started when they were 9, 10, 11, and now this year they're 12. So every year you kind of try to add a little bit more to what they can take in and what level they'd be at.
Hmm.
And when I first retired, it was kind of like, where do I start? And trying to what do I teach? Where do I start? Where are they at? And you kind of get a feel for it as you go along. And it's been a process that way for me as well, coaching and adjusting, whether it's a practice plan or at different points in the season. Okay, they understand this now. Let's add this now to their game and to their ability to make reads in this situation. And I'm learning too. I'm not definitely not a perfect coach, but it's been fun and I'm enjoying it.
Yeah. And speaking of growing up, and obviously, you as a dad, and this is the big debate, right? Which in minor hockey, which is early specialization versus multi-sport development. I mean, obviously, I grew up playing multiple sports, and I used to do martial arts growing up. So for me, being able to have the ability to read body language or read eye movements or that little twitch in the shoulder from martial arts actually helped me in my game when I was playing too. That you can kind of almost tell what direction a player is going to go. Well, how important it is for you for either early specialization or multi-sport? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in the multi-sport for sure, and I think that there's studies and proof that that is the best way to do it. You develop their athleticism, their intelligence, and just like you said, reading body language, and the more movement they do, the more movement patterns that they're put through, the more they have an understanding of their body. And then as they get a little bit older, then you can specialize. And after they've been running and jumping and skipping and climbing and throwing a ball and hitting a ball or putting a bat, playing basketball. And so all of those things help a player with their athleticism, but also their intelligence on the ice too, in understanding time and space and distance and angles. And just like you said, the way they're going to move if an opponent moves his shoulder or leans this way, you're getting a read on I think all that helps. And I'm definitely uh, a believer that the more movement they do at a young age, the better. And then you start to specialize. I don't know what age that would be, but probably pretty close to around 12, 13, I guess. I don't know. It becomes kind of busy, it seems now. Earlier as kids at Colton, my son is going to go to an academy next year and they're on the ice lots. So it's like, well, how do you throw in uh, another sport? But there's always ways to do different things. You can hop in the lake and swim, and different things. But yeah, definitely adding in multiple sport is what I would
Yeah.
promote.
What did you play growing up? What kind of sports did you play?
Well, I grew up in a small town, so there wasn't a ton of super organized competitive other sports other than hockey. But I played baseball. It was just underhand baseball, co-ed, mixed with boys and girls, and same with the soccer. But I was in gymnastics as a kid. I did a lot of running. I did a ton of rollerblading. There was days where I would, in the summer, I was on my rollerblades playing road hockey, rollerblading around town, and then we'd have games on the road for 5, 6 hours till it was midnight. I did a lot of basketball, just shooting hoops. I didn't play on a team, but shooting hoops, playing basketball, just trying to do layups, just watching the NBA. Nobody telling me how to do it and what mechanic to do it with. I was just looking at the TV, seeing Michael Jordan, and then trying to pretend I was Michael Jordan in my own body. So I think there's a lot to be said about that, where kids need to just kind of figure things out themselves, but you have to do it. You have to be out there shooting the hoops and playing and right there playing. It was fun for me. It wasn't somebody telling me to do this or driving me anywhere to do it from 6 to 7. I had the fortunate circumstances where it was I wake up in the morning in the summer and what am I going to do today? Oh, I'll go for a bike ride and I'll bike around, and then now we're going to go running and we're going to go on the monkey bars and play on the playground, and then we're going to play tag, and then now we're going to get on our rollerblades. So it was just all day kind of moving, and I think, certainly I was in gymnastics class up until about 10, but those were, yeah, it was fun. It was
Yeah.
good. And I think that was definitely helpful.
Definitely, I think gymnastics is one of those sports. And my son, I threw him into gymnastics as well, right up until the time it got pretty serious, where you had to be there 4 hours a day or 5 hours a day. And I said, I can't do that anymore. But it was a good solid foundation for him to work on, like stretching, mobility, the coordination of your
Uh-huh.
body and such. So I definitely think that's very useful. Second thing you mentioned was baseball. So when we do all of our testing here, baseball by far seems to be that second sport that's not only common, I think, these days, but it actually works on your hand-eye pretty extensively, right? So learning to make contact with the ball, which is sometimes the same as making contact with the puck, uh, obviously catching and reading the throws and bodies. Obviously when you're watching baseball, it seems really slow and it's like, okay, well, like some people might find it boring, but when you're actually in there's a lot of thinking going on, right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
vision going on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, baseball was always that second favorite sport growing up. Yeah, I agree. I mean, when you watch it, it seems kind of slow, but when you're playing it, it seemed like so much fun. Whether you're hitting, catching, or throwing, it was just making a read on whether to throw it to second or the third, and then or running around the bases. You got to make reads too, and just quick decisions. So yeah, I always joke around that I would have been a baseball player if I wasn't hockey. Maybe I should have been a baseball player. I think they make more money.
Yeah, so let's talk from an IQ perspective now. Obviously, the games has really changed to the point where there's lots of coaches now kind of jumping on with video and posting things that really kind of teach the how to play of hockey, because obviously, I think even when my son was growing up too, we're working a lot with coaches with like doing a lot of cone drills and stuff, which is great because you definitely need those basic skills and fundamentals. But there was very little back then around using video and teaching kids how to play, and that's how our business actually even started. This was started out of my basement, where my son just was super skilled. Like if you put him on the ice, he's probably the fastest, can shoot the hardest, doing all the right things. But then it come game time, like I used to joke around with him saying, "You just disappear." And
Yeah.
it doesn't show up, right? So how important is IQ now in the game that you're seeing, and how are you kind of addressing some of that even with Colton right now?
Well, I think IQ is, obviously you need to have your basic foundational things. You be able to skate and get to the puck or get to a loose puck and get body positioning. So skating is important, but I think IQ, you talk to different scouts and teams, and it's like they all look for guys with IQ, hockey sense. What is hockey sense? And looking back, I guess on my career, I feel like the coaches would give us a plan, and you have your structure, and I could take that in, but there's always reads that you have to make, and within that structure, and I feel like I was more instinctual, and I think it goes back to just all the movement and all the different games you played as a kid, and and you learn, and you recognize patterns, and um I think the ability to be able to use your teammates um is one thing that I know been stressing to my son. Everybody wants to do what Connor's able to do, Connor McDavid, and be able to stick handle through players. And he's able to do that, and certainly to be able to have that skill and that tool in your toolbox is a nice thing to have. Not as many guys have that, but can you move the puck, and can you make passes and accept passes, and can you get open, and can you find your teammates and move the puck when it needs to be moved and where it needs to be moved, because the puck moves quicker than anybody can skate. And even as much as Connor McDavid can stick handle through somebody and multiple players at a time, he's able to use his teammates. You look at that pass that he gave Celebrini when Celebrini scored. He's passing that back towards his own zone in the offensive zone, and he's passing it through two guys. So it's the vision, and then also Celebrini to know that, okay, I'm going to go to this place to get open for a pass. So to me, hockey sense is yeah, it's huge, and I think it's just whether it's video, showing them and teaching them that this is what they're thinking here, this is what they're doing. I think that's one way to do it, but also just stressing the importance of it too. I think at a young age, kids they think that they're good if they can score all the goals, or you know, beat a guy one on one. And sure, that's important and part of the game. And you need to have goal scorers, but it's the guy that sets the play up and the guy that creates the play, to me, is the guy that is the most important and the most valuable, because he's the one creating the opportunities by using his teammates and finding his teammates. And I was stressed that to me from a young age. And so maybe even the simple fact of stressing it to kids that you don't have to be the guy that stick handles through everybody and goes end to end and scores a goal. You can be the guy that understands that maybe your strength is being the low guy down in the offensive zone and in and around the net, and using body positioning and timing it and finding ways to get to the net for a tip and a rebound. And so everybody has their strengths and weaknesses, their God-given strengths and their God-given weaknesses in terms of their physical ability. How big are they? And I think that's one area where if they understand the game within the game a little bit, there's a role for other players, and you don't always have to be that guy that scores 60 goals. Maybe you're the guy that is able to protect pucks down low below the goal line and wear the other team's defenseman out and cause their other defenseman playing it. You're playing in the offensive zone and getting it low to high, and then you're battling and getting to the nets. Everybody's different, and it's been fun. I don't know. There's lots to talk about when it comes to hockey sense, but the ability to use your teammates and what are your strengths in terms of your size and your physical attributes, and then are you able to learn the game and how the game is played.
What do you think? I mean, obviously these days, you got the phone to scroll through highlights and I typically ask kids, "Hey, did you watch the game last night?" They're like, "No, I didn't watch it. I was playing or I was at practice," right? Like, because they're busy. Their schedules are getting filled up pretty fast. Any suggestions you could give to kids today to learn some of those and sharpen their IQ inside their game today?
Yeah, I think just like you said, watching hockey, it's different when you're watching a highlight and you see a 5-second clip as opposed to watching, you know, watch 2 periods. If you can't sit there for 60 minutes, the whole game, watch a period, and you'll see that, well, okay, it wasn't just about that one shift and that was the only thing that he did all game. Like, there was multiple things that went into that play on how he was able to create that. Um and you don't always have to have somebody there pointing things out or stopping it and saying, breaking the play down. You're going to learn as a kid. The more you watch hockey, the more you're going to take things in that you necessarily might not even know you're taking in. Um, and I know that I watched a lot of hockey when I was a kid, and I think it helped me too. So definitely, watching hockey is one of the most easiest ways to do it. Instead of, I think you can learn too from playing PlayStation. I was going to say instead of playing PlayStation, but there's multiple different ways. But yeah, watching hockey and yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I had a kid on our team that I was coaching with my son's team. This kid was unreal on NHL, like the PlayStation, unreal. But then
Yeah,
when it came to his actual game, it was nowhere even close. And so we used to kind of think, okay, wait, maybe this kid, if we tell him that you should play like you're playing your NHL game, right? That it might help him. And
yeah,
sure enough, like we just see this, improvement because all of a sudden he's like, oh wait, this is just like my video game. And
yeah.
that awareness wasn't there until we told him.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I couldn't help myself, but I was playing PlayStation with my son one time, and I was trying to teach him the game when we were playing PlayStation. Oh, look, I'm going to go over here now, and I'm going to take the ice over here. You can't get the puck from me. See, I got it in the offensive zone. I'm going to take it way outside. I got no plays. I got no room here. I'm going to take it outside the offensive blue line back towards my own net. And yeah, maybe a coach might not like that, but I grew up watching and admiring the way the Russians played and their skill and artistry in the game, and so I think that there's a lot to be said for that as well in terms of understanding the game. Take the ice where's the open ice. Skate for that open ice, and that's what we were doing with the PlayStation. And I was
Mhm.
just playing keep away. Oh, I'm going to pass it to this guy. You can't get it, and then all of a sudden, okay, now it opens up, and I'll go in for an attack here.
Right, right, right. No, I think it's a huge part. I grew up with racing games and so by the time I was actually driving, it was like, oh, okay, this is not that hard. And so I think
Yeah.
it's the same thing. You talked a little bit about pattern recognition, and I think that's important as well, that kids need that opportunity to recognize patterns. And so the more that you can recognize them, the more you go, oh, wait, I've seen that situation before. And then we move into the next phase, which is pattern utilization, right? So how do I use what the patterns that I read and how do I use that to my advantage? And so I think that's kind of, when you played as well. And then the last phase is pattern creation. So can you create new patterns? And this is probably what you were doing with Seabrook as well, is that you kind of, you read each other, then you utilized each other, and then you created new patterns after that you did for over 1,000 games together. And I think that's these are things that are never taught in school. You're supposed to learn them on your own. And I think what we're trying to do now is trying to you know create some structure around it, so it is an opportunity for kids that maybe didn't have that opportunity to learn by watching games, but they can learn it here. and uh,
Mhm.
and these are some of the things that we've done. Well, I've done for my son anyway over time, and now it's turned into something where we have over 1,600 kids here. So, um,
Wow.
but I think,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
great.
yeah, but yeah, no, this has been fantastic. I guess one last question for you, because I think this is interesting. Obviously, we talked about Connor McDavid. What was it like playing with him? And just
I get that a
going
lot.
going up
Yeah, I
against a
mean,
guy
for
like that.
for
That was
for
like what, 21-22 season. So still,
yeah,
pretty
I mean,
young.
for me, at 38 at the time, I'm a fan of the game too, even as a player. I think they're all fans. You wouldn't be a hockey player, even, Connor. Connor's a hockey fan. That's why he's Connor McDavid, because he loves the game. And so for me to be able to play with Connor, that was a big reason why I went to Edmonton. So to have the opportunity to play my last year with, arguably one of the best player to ever play. I look back and cherish those memories that I got playing with him and learning from him. And well, he might have thought I was a little bit crazy, but maybe I am. But learned so much. I think one of the things that I think stuck out for me was just how much he wanted to win and how much he wants to bring a cup back to Edmonton. I think our team in Chicago had we hadn't made playoffs in a while, and then going back in that environment was fun. Hungry to win and hungry to get better. And I think one of the things I took away from Connor that I don't really think gets talked about enough with him. They talk about his skill and just everything that he can do that's been said about him. But one thing that doesn't really get mentioned is his engine, and how he's able to he's playing lots of minutes and he's flying out there and he's able to, have repeated efforts up and down the ice over and over again. And I was, I know that he's younger than me, but I was like, I don't know if I could have been doing that. I wasn't skating up and down the ice full speed like 3 or 4 times in a shift. And, they're on the power play and he's zinging around in the offensive zone. Then it goes down the ice and he's going back and then he's carrying it up full speed. So I was impressed with so many things, but, apart from his engine, just his drive to be a champion, and I think, that was tough not seeing him get the gold there, but I do really believe that he's going to win a Stanley Cup. I think apart from him being so good, it's his hunger and his determination and drive to get it done, and that's why he is who he is. And I'm excited for what's to come for him.
Yeah, absolutely. What were the practices like for you guys? Like, I mean, going up against them and trying
Well,
to
I
stop a
remember
guy like that.
I had the 2-week quarantine because that was just COVID was still
Right.
around. And so I hadn't practiced. I'd been on the ice for 2 weeks, and then I skated one day and with the skating coach, and I had been working out for 2 weeks but hadn't skated. And then I got one skate in, and then I went into a team practice where they had just lost an exhibition game and the coach wasn't happy. And so it was a fast, high paced practice. And then one of the drills that we did was a defenseman having to gap up and the forwards coming around with speed on you. And, I was going against Connor, and it's like all the cameras and TSN or whatever's there. And he just blew by me. It was like, I hope that doesn't go on Sports Center or whatever, but I didn't really care. I knew that, what I could do, and I was trying to get my bearings back in me, but you definitely knew. I'm like, he's coming fast. So, but he blew right by me, and, it was fun. I mean, just seeing him when he gets on the ice is, zinging around the ice in a circle, and everybody's kind of going half speed, but he's just flying, and it kind of reminded me. I'm like, I think when I was 22, I was going around fast like that. Now I'm 38 and I'm just still trying to loosen up a little bit. And it was fun. It was, those guys make Connor and Leon, they make everybody better with how hard they practice. And, it was awesome to be a part of that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. That's awesome. I'm so honored to have you on this podcast, and I thank you so much for your time. I know you're a busy guy, and
No,
obviously,
thanks for having me. Yeah,
yeah, this has been great.
good to connect, and thanks for all the stuff that you're doing. It's helped me, and taking things from you to help with my son and his teammates, and even if it's not one thing specific, but just thinking in outside the box and from the norm. And so I appreciate what you've done. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, pleasure. Thanks very much. So that concludes the podcast for today. And we hope to see you guys sometime very soon on the next episode of Cognition School. Thank you so much.